Hi, I'm John Wilson, Head of Pensions Technical at Dalriada Trustees Limited. And this is our first in a series of frequently asked questions, video logs, dealing with issues that come to the knowledge management function on a regular basis. I'm joined today by my colleague and independent trustee, Ian Craig. And Ian, I understand that you have a question for me today in connection with rather sad news about a member of one of your schemes.
Yes, no, thanks John. We've had one of the members of our scheme has been in touch. They're suffering from ill health, and I'm really looking just to see what options that they have available to them.
Okay, yeah. Well, this is a question that comes to the knowledge management function. Thankfully, not too regularly, but obviously very important when it does happen. So where we're dealing with a pension scheme member who is in serious ill health, one option is actually to commute or pay all their benefits as a single lump sum. This might be beneficial to them because a pension for life might not be the optimum benefit for them.
Okay, so the single lump sum, is that authorised payment for tax purposes?
It is. HMRC will recognise it as an authorised payment for tax purposes, provided that it is permitted under the scheme rules and it meets certain criteria. And one of the most important criterion for this form of lump sum, known as a serious ill health lump sum, is that the trustees have received advice from a registered medical practitioner showing that the life expectancy of the member will be 12 months or less. So that's one of the key things that trustees should be looking for when considering whether they might offer their member this particular benefit.
Okay, that's really helpful. Is the serious ill health lump sum, just on the topic of tax, is that also subject to income tax and other taxes?
But one of the great advantages in terms of this being valuable for a member in the circumstances, and of course the family, is if the HMRC criteria for the serious ill health lump sum are met, then the lump sum should be entirely free of income tax. And what this means is that the benefits can be fully commuted, paid as a single lump sum and discharge of the benefits, and there is no further tax liability on either the scheme or the member.
And how should a serious ill health lump sum be calculated?
Okay. There are different approaches. The starting point for any trustee would be, is there an approach set out in the trustees and rules? And frequently we've found that there isn't. So the trustees actually have to take advice, usually from their scheme actuary, and determine how it is that they would quantify the amount of lump sum that they would pay to the individual. Different approaches that we have seen are to offer a multiple of the pension that would have been payable annually, maybe 5 times the pension, because had the pension been put into payment, it might have been guaranteed for that length of time, or to do something around the transfer value of the member's benefits. But when looking at maybe offering a transfer value as a metric for quantifying the serious ill health lump sum, trustees need to consider whether or not they need to retain any money in the scheme for a benefit payable to a spouse or dependent following the member's death.
Okay, thank you. And just on that, retaining sort of for spouses in the event, additional sort of benefits that are payable, are there any other requirements for the trustees to consider?
There are, yes. One of the requirements for a serious ill health lump sum, separate from the HMRC or tax requirements, relates to the regulatory requirements for contracted out pension schemes. If the scheme was contracted out and the member had, for example, a guaranteed minimum pension, then overriding legislation means that money would need to be retained behind to pay the widow or widower's GMP following the death of the member after receipt of the serious ill health lump sum. So in addition to considering whether or not a dependent's pension should be retained in the scheme, the trustees also need to set up a separate arrangement to comply with contracting out requirements after they discharge the member's benefit through payment of the serious ill health lump sum.
Thank you. What other issues should trustees be considering
For me, a couple of things, and I suppose I would put them under the heading of communication and sensitivity. Clearly, this is going to be a very difficult time for both the individual and their family. We're talking about somebody who might, for example, have a critical illness. So obviously taking that into account in the communications that are sent out to the member, they might have to be quite bespoke. I think the other thing is to try and be as helpful as possible, but without giving advice. You know, this would be a very easy area where a trustee, in an effort to be as helpful as they can to a beneficiary, might actually, you know, tread across the line from information to advice. So it's important, I think, just to kind of lay out the options, the benefits that are available under the scheme, remind the member that they do have an option to take a transfer value, and that might be something that they want to consider, that they should certainly be taking advice around that, and might have to if they've got defined benefits. But it should be left with the member with as much information as possible from the scheme for the member to make an informed decision, and not to feel that they have been led down option A or option B by the trustees. So it's treading that fine line, doing it sensitively and doing it in a timely manner as well, given the circumstances. I have seen situations where further information has been requested, and in the meantime, you know, the member, being terminally ill, has actually died. And in that situation, that means that sometimes the options available on the scheme become very limited. So it's important to act quickly to give the member and their family the full array of options that can be available in circumstances of ill health like this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.